Enough. So, yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to be talking about this morning the human predicament, freeing yourself from bondage. And it's the last of the series on the book Living Untethered by Michael Singer. I got to tell you, I started reading this book, thank goodness, about 4 months ago. And I read, and I read, and I read. And I finally got through about half of it, which was all about the Big Bang Theory and looking at 4.5 million days on Earth back. And that took a little bit of time. And then I read some more. And finally I started putting notes together, and I said, how in 3 weeks can I talk about this book and make sense? Well, I'm trying. And today I'm going to try to bring it to a conclusion as we talk about this idea of being in the human predicament, but not being caught up in and finding ourselves, freeing ourselves from bondage. You know, talking about a human predicament, the Pope was in Washington, D.C. a good while back, and he talked to Congress, he talked to the President, and he went to his hotel, and on the way to the hotel, it was kind of dark, it was late at night, and he said to his chauffeur, you know, would you just drive me around Washington? I really want to see the beautiful light. Can you imagine it right there? Beautiful lights on the monuments and on the streets. I just want to see that. Well, they got up to the Washington Monument, and the Pope said, you know, one of the things I don't get a chance to do is drive. And I love to drive. And he said, would you mind if I drive? So the chauffeur said, no problem. So the Pope got up to drive, and the chauffeur got in the back seat. Well, the Pope was doing a good job of driving. And he got on Connecticut Avenue, and it was kind of late at night, so there wasn't much traffic. So he sped up a little bit, and he sped up a little more. Then all of a sudden, he heard a siren. Officer comes to the car, looks in the car, shakes his head, goes back to his car, and he calls in the headquarters. He said, Sergeant, I got a real problem here. He said, well, what is it? He said, I've pulled over somebody who's really, really important. Well, is it a congressman? No. Is it a senator? No. Is it a vice president? No. Well, who is it? He said, I don't really know, but he's got the Pope as a chauffeur. Anyway, it's a nice way to be in the human predicament. So, this morning as we begin, you know, sometimes in life there are important questions regarding the quality of life. And it's not so much what we own. It's not so much who we are. It's not so much what we do. But instead, it's all about how are we doing inside. That's what it's really all about. How are we doing inside? You remember, kind of had some fun the first Sunday we talked about untethered lives, and we talked about living untethered, and we talked about who's in there, right? Remember that? Did you find out? Are you finding out? Isn't it interesting? I keep asking myself that question now. I think about something, go, who's in there doing that? And I kind of have fun with it. But it helps me, hopefully, kind of center myself on who's in there. And, you know, for most of us, there are moments, there are times when, oh, goodness gracious, we feel life is so beautiful, we feel so beautiful, we feel so good, we feel so much love, we don't even know what to do with all of it. And then there are times and moments that I don't want to last for another second. You know what? That's the human predicament. And for most, that is a fair description of what we call the human predicament. The challenge is in releasing the past moments that create negativity in our lives and opening ourselves to the beauty that each of us is. That's the challenge. And we can do that. And so what I want to do this morning is look at this and sum up this whole thing about the human predicament. Now, believe it or not, that is a screen of life. Each of us, in our hearts and minds, have a screen of life. But what happens is sometimes we don't look at it often enough because it'll tell us exactly where we are on the inside. We can experience love, and we know that as it happens. We can experience maybe seeing ourselves as a victim, and we see ourselves as a jury and the judge. We can also see ourselves as resistors, resisting what it is that's in front of us and what is ours to do. Resisting the ability to really change because we kind of like the drama we're in for a little while. And then, of course, there is this idea and this opportunity where we live from the knowing that the outer equals the inner. We know that. And so we look at our screen of life to see where we are. Am I living in love, or am I carrying something with me about Uncle Joe? What am I doing? Am I carrying something with me that makes me feel uncomfortable? And what that says to me is I'm resisting something that I need to pay attention to. And so what I want to do today is kind of talk about, and I'm kind of doing it in reverse, what are some of the things we can do so that we live life untethered? And to look at that, I want us to understand that being within the world, but not of it. That's one of the keys. Being in the world, but not of it. And so when I understand that and see that, and understand what is it like beyond the human predicament, then I can understand what that means. Now, I want to, and I got so many points today, I just got to do quick things, okay? Move along. But anyway, what I want to do is just share a simple way of understanding how to be in the world, but not of the world. You've had your meditation time in the morning. You're now going to enjoy nature, so you go for a walk. You're walking along the trail, and all of a sudden, there is this trash, some paper. And you reach over, and you naturally just pick it up and put it in your pocket to carry and get rid of it later. You see, when we're in the human predicament, what we do is we pick up the piece of paper and say, what jerk did that? Who is this person messing up Mother Earth? Goodness gracious, can't people have any respect? Can't people be responsible? What's the matter with these people? Right? Now we have that choice. Or we pick up the trash, put it in our pocket, and continue to walk on. You see the difference? In the first example, I'm not only in the world, I am of the world. In the second example, I'm in the world, but not of the world. And that's what we want to learn to do and live. And as we do that, we start to understand even more about who we are. And so then the next thing here is that it's called the transmutation of energy. Now, that always sounded kind of complicated to me. And I guess if you do it from a scientific standpoint, it probably is, but I wouldn't know. And so when I look at this transmutation of energy, what that's talking about is that energy is always flowing. Energy doesn't flow all around you. Energy flows through you and comes from you. If you look at an aura, let's say around my fingers or over my head, if there is one, then what you're going to see is the energy coming out of me, not the energy going in me. And so what we do is that we are not careful, and those who really know the chakras understand this, that we need to release anything that is containing or holding back that energy. Because that energy is going to release itself. It does not stop flowing because you don't want it to, or because you are in a state of mind where you're holding it back. And we all get there. So it's either going to show up, as you see on the screen, as somebody blowing steam. And whenever that happens, we all know that that's not a good situation most of the time. And I know when I do it, Vicki lets me know it's not a good situation. And lets me know that there's a better way of handling it. And then there is the other option, which is to release and let go and let God be within me, as me, flowing through me, and then the energy flows with that. And then I'm in touch with you and with you and with you, and you are in touch with one another. And by the way, it's one of the things I love about this church. You are in touch with one another. And so as we start to look at that, this transmutation of energy, what we start to understand is that it gives us a sense of being free, of being untethered. And so let's use our energy in a positive way to free ourselves. And then there's this thing called the power of intention. The power of intention is really critical if you want to be in charge of your human predicament. I learned a long time ago, and I may have shared this with you before, through Bishop Spong, when I was actually living in Short Hills, New Jersey, where he lived, and I heard him speak. And he talked about that in the mornings, every morning, he would get up, and he would pray for an hour. And I said to myself, what in the world can he pray about for an hour? I obviously wasn't meditating at the time, okay? And then he said, but the other thing I do for an hour is I set intentions. I go through my mind, and I see each event that's happening that day, and I set an intention of how I intend to show up. And if you are having any challenges at work, if you're having any challenges with an individual, before you talk with them, before you are around them, set the intention of how you are going to show up. Maybe you're looking forward or not looking forward to all the family getting together. Set your intention of how you are going to show up. And when we use intention to manage our lives and to manage our thoughts and to go within ourselves and be ourselves, what happens is we become an active listener in the situation. We can hear, and more importantly, we can feel the other person. And as we do that, we start to find ways that we can work together, solve issues, be of one mind, and most importantly, be of one heart. And so we learn to set intentions, and there are great powers in that, okay? Now, the other thing is that, and here's a question about intentions. How do we get where we want to be as spiritual beings? We have to learn how to live as the power of spirit. To live as the power of spirit. And I'll guarantee you, you have to set intentions to do that, because otherwise we get caught up in what? The human predicament. And so then the next thing is there are a few things here that I suggest to us that would say to us that the human predicament, how to free yourself from bondage, that would help us do that. And one is don't fight the human predicament. I lost my notes here, I'm sorry. Don't fight the human predicament. Instead, release it. Let it go. Look at it in the mirror and say, that's not who I want to be or how I want to participate in this world at this moment. We are transformed lives, and we're transforming the world. That's what you are. That's who you are. Especially when we get outside of the human predicament and stay centered in the spiritual individual that we are. And it's through that individual spirituality that we can come together and be at the heart level and understand one another. It's then that we free ourselves from this human predicament. And as I do so, then the next thing I want to do is to live from the heart. To live from the heart. Well, most of you are familiar with heart math. So how do I live from the heart? I have to think about it. I have to stop and say, what is my heart telling me? I have to stop and say, heart, open up. And so I take the moment to do that. And you know, when I do that, things change. When you do that, things change. Because what happens is the heart is really the center of our universe. The heart is really that space where we can release and feel the power of divine mind working within us. And when we feel the power of divine mind and understand it, we don't let our brain be in charge. We let the divine mind manage the brain. I mean, the brain's got a lot of bad habits. It thinks about over and over and over again, right? But what we're not able to do is to put a new idea that the brain can think about. We can interrupt those patterns that are not healthy and put in patterns that are healthy. And that comes from living from within the heart. That's where the power is. That's where spirit moves from and through you and me and into others. It is that string theory that says that you and I are tied together through the power of energy, and that we are truly, truly one, and that what you feel, I feel, and what you think about, whether I know it or not, I may be thinking about or may have effect on me. And so I try to live from the heart. Open your heart. It's not that hard. Just say, heart, open up, and it works. Okay? So we keep it pretty simple. And then the other thing here is make a paradigm shift. Make a paradigm shift. Well, when we open our heart and we allow our mind to manage the brain, what happens is we begin to see things differently. And that's what a paradigm shift is. Making a change in how you see something. And we all know about paradigm shifts. We've all lived through them. And for example, do you have an iPhone or a cell phone? 2007, wasn't that long ago. Has the world changed because of it? That is a paradigm shift. It was a change in culture just about overnight. I mean, I can still remember standing in line to get one of those things. I mean, 2 hours. It was ridiculous. 3 hours later, I could have walked in and bought one. But anyway, I just had to have it. So, part of human predicament, by the way. And so anyway, what happens is that we start to understand this paradigm shift that we can make. Let me give you a few quotes. Stephen Covey said, if you want small changes in your life, work on your attitude. But if you want big and primary changes, work on your paradigm. William James says the greatest revelation of our generation is the discovery that human beings, by changing the inner attitudes of their minds, can change the outer aspects of their lives. That's a paradigm shift. Norman Vincent Peale said, change your thoughts and you change your world. I love him. He always has said something, and yet it makes sense. Change your thoughts and you change your world. That's the paradigm shift that I'm talking about, that each of us needs to live through and be in. And so living untethered, what does that really mean? You see, when we suppress or express our emotions, and we do not limit ourselves, what happens, we find that we have the ability to be untethered. So it's not expressing emotions in a negative way. It's not letting fear reign. It's not letting anger reign. It is instead the ability to let love be in charge. And when we do that, we find that we're able to live this life in an untethered way. That we can understand that we don't suppress anything, but instead we release in a healthy way everything that we need to release. And it's then that we feel untethered. It's then that we feel lighter. And that's hard for me, to feel lighter. I got to tell you, when I look at the scales. But it tells me that I can feel lighter inside. You see, there's this sacred place that gives us that ability to experience our emotions and not get uptight about it. There is a sacred place where we can go inside and we can feed our soul. There's a sacred place where you are not being touched by something, but you are touched by something. You're not being touched by something, meaning my emotions get away from me, but I'm being touched as something. And when I allow that to happen, I know that I am living untethered. I know that I am blessed to know that the mind is free to think and the heart is free to feel. And you are created as an untethered being. Remember that. You are an untethered being. We're just in the human predicament, and it's our opportunity and our blessing to be able to live in it and manage it so that we stay as spiritual beings, which we really are. Grow inward, and the result is a life that can release any conditions that find us in bondage. So we expect day to day a paradigm shift that frees us, comforts us, and allows ourselves to be a conduit for changing the world through unconditional love. That's how we transform the world. As Ann said earlier, by transforming ourselves, getting and intending to have a paradigm shift as needed. And as you do that, others will grow with you and have that paradigm shift because we're all connected. We can go other way. Walt Disney put it about as simply as I can say it. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. So don't talk about being untethered. Be untethered. Let's pray. So gently, close your eyes if you like. But do it in a relaxed manner. And as you do, focus on your breath. And take a deep breath in. Hold it for a second. And then release. And take another breath in. And release. And focus on the breath as life itself, in you, as you. And as you do that, see yourself beautiful. Imagine that. See yourself as beautiful in this moment because you are. See yourself living in the beauty of the human condition as you are. You've experienced that by going to the ocean or the mountains, by taking a trip and seeing another part of the world. And you do it untethered. You do it because you understand that all of this is a blessing to you, for you. And so in the silence, feel what you experience. And so now, gently come back to this place, this moment, bringing with you that beauty that you are. Amen.
Flow, Spirit, flow through me as I open up to be an expression of your unfolding peace. Show, Spirit, show through me as I open up to be an expression of